confused now, Praggnanandhaa. Here we go, second blitz game.
Second blitz game, and it's a modern defense from Magnus Carlsen. He just lets white occupy the center of the board with his pawns. Usually, we don't see this at top level unless one player, especially with black, is in a must-win situation. And Pragg brings his pieces out very quickly. This is one of the critical lines, one of the most topical lines in this opening. If white wants to, often we'll see white step forward even further in the center, kick away black's knight, and Magnus will continue developing. Yeah, this will come maybe slightly as a surprise to Praggnanandhaa, but Magnus has done this before on plenty of occasions. It's very provocative stuff, and he likes to provoke his opponents when he needs to win. He wants white to kind of overextend, push his pawns too far forward, and then he'll try and pick them off one by one later. What do you guys think of this opening choice from black?
Yeah, so it's the go-to opening choice, I guess, the sort of modern, the perk, this kind of way. If you need to win with black, fianchetto your kingside bishop, and that often leads to a bit of an unbalanced structure. But now Pragg clearly doesn't want any of that, and he's just keeping it kind of symmetrical by capturing in the middle there, and that has obviously more drawing tendencies. I expect the knights to be exchanged here. White just to castle and just to play sensible moves. And I think the slight problem that black has is that fianchettoed bishop, because it's looking at the black pawn. So you could argue it's a bad bishop and that white is slightly better because his bishop is much better than that one.
Yeah, I have to say that I agree. I think white has a slight advantage here. It's not much, but it's probably going to be involving some action happening on the left side of the board. So I'm maybe expecting the A pawn to move 2 squares forward and then let the dark squared bishop develop on the A3 square.
Yeah, white is very flexible. He goes for your idea immediately, Ivanka. White's dark squared bishop is ready to move. But Praggnanandhaa, he's being cynical here, but also very practical. He's just trading off the pieces. One set of rooks have left the board now. Magnus controlling some squares. I'm expecting to see Pragg, okay, first take a step up with his pawn. The white dark square bishop's going to come out. The white rook's going to centralize. And how is black ever going to get any winning chances? How is black going to get active?
Yeah,
very difficult.
You can often try moving your knight on the right-hand side, the black knight, trying to move that near in towards the white king. You know, maybe back it up with the queen. This is kind of a desperate-ish attack because it shouldn't work. But with, again, symmetrical position means it's much more likely to have a draw, and that's all that Pragg needs. What's the time situation like? Well, Pragg's only spent, you know, he spent no time at all.
Spent like 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
15 moves. How quick is that?
And it looks like with this move, he's actually, you know, going for an exchange of bishops. More exchanges, the more likely a draw, and here he goes, exchanging off more pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very difficult for Magnus to generate any play. I mean, and there Pragg says, no, you're going to swap off bishops on my terms. And I think that this move by Magnus is very crafty. You know, the bishop was really bad piece on G7, so why not move it maybe to the B4 square, just to ask white some questions.
Yeah, Magnus is playing this game as if he wants a draw, not a win. But that's because of Pragg's kind of really calm, really controlled play. And it's so difficult. I mean, white here just can sit on the position. If white wants to force things a bit, maybe you trade off the light squared bishops. At some point in the next few moves, you start relocating white's knight. White's knight is not well placed. I would say that's the only problem piece for Pragg right now. But once you solve that issue, no weaknesses in the white camp. You might end up with the better minor pieces, the better bishop. I love white's bishop, the dark squared bishop in front of the white queen. Yeah, Pragg's slowing down though. So finally, Magnus has forced his opponent to think for the first time in the game. And yeah, solid for both sides. It feels like there should be some fireworks, just judging by the games we've seen between these two in the past. Something always seems to happen. But it's up to Magnus to create that. And okay, a trade of these bishops.
And I'm probably expecting the queen to step forward. Okay, the rook steps forward. And now maybe black can just start putting some pressure on the e4 pawn by developing the dark squared bishop. But still, white has such a solid position. Yeah. So difficult to break it down.
And pawn structure so symmetrical, it's hard to even dream of creating a passed pawn anytime soon. What do you guys predict? Percentages?
What would you do, Simon?
What would I do in this position? I mean, it looks very symmetrical. I mean, if there wasn't anything on the match, I would offer a draw, and if my opponent didn't take it, I would resign. No, I mean, this move kind of surprised me because it gives away a square next to the pawn, but it's just very equal, isn't it? I mean, there's not much to say, except for at the moment, Prag's done a great job of just nullifying anything that Magnus tries to do. And, I mean, what would you do here? I mean, you might, I don't know, I mean, booster the pawn in the middle, move the bishop somewhere. I mean, there's not much going on at the moment, to be honest.
But Magnus maybe has some sneaky ideas with that little pawn move. You know, I'm thinking the only reason he played that move is because he wants to play the b pawn, move it 2 squares forward and imbalance the position a teeny bit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can move the pawn in front of that one up 1 square. I suppose it becomes a little bit weak then. I mean, it's still, I can see Magnus winning this position,
There's
actually.
enough pieces left on the board to create something later.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And his position has improved, I think, quite drastically, you know, over the last 10 moves, because I think White was slightly better, but Magnus, he's not scared to exchange pieces even when he needs to win. And I think he's got rid of his bad pieces now. And I think things are improving for Magnus in this situation. White, with his last move, takes more control of the open file. But now maybe that pawn can advance, like you said, Jovanka. It's one idea at least.
Yeah. Do you know what I suspect Pragg is going to do? I think he's going to put his bishop on g5 and try and trade it for the knight.
Yeah, maybe he could have done that last move, because if the knight retreats, you've always got queen coming out to try to swap the queens off. But this seems very sensible, doesn't it? Just take control of the open file, swap everything off when you get a chance, and try to draw. We see Magnus still laughing, isn't he? That's a very long podcast he's listening to. It's going on for days, that podcast. Maybe it's the same one, and he's just like going around and around in his head, and it's like, yeah.
That is a very good point.
It is really surprising.
Spending a lot of time on the clock now, though, Carlsen. So the clocks have pretty much balanced up. Yeah, the one thing that I would be afraid of, and if I were Pragg's coach, maybe I'd be kind of discussing this with him afterwards, the mindset of just trying to play for a draw, which it does feel like he's adopting right now, is dangerous, especially against Magnus. Playing for a draw against him never seems to work somehow. The only way to beat Magnus, or the way to draw against him, is to attack him, and at some point there might be a way to bail out. But
yeah, especially with this opening. I mean, you know, Pragg had great chances to attack in this opening rather than swap things off, but he's gone for the swap method instead.
Oh.
And this all seems, again, very normal, just boosting the pawn. The white knight would probably love to move at some point and try to swap the rooks off, you know. And Black's offering maybe an exchange of bishops on the next move as well. Yeah. Still nothing here for Magnus at the moment.
Not yet, but there are some holes, at least long-term, around the white king on the dark squares. Something to probe at later, maybe. Magnus just needs to keep the pieces on. It's not necessarily easy. I love this move from Praggnanandhaa, just tucking the white king away.
There's a surprise. Yeah,
in the corner.
That's a Howl special, that one. A little king probe.
And the b pawn has moved forward. So the question is, do you take it? Do you not take it? I would not be tempted to take it, actually.
Yeah, it's so surprising that the bar is up in White's favour, because it looks like Black is playing really logical, smooth chess. It's consistent. He's just fighting for squares.
Seems like he's making progress, if anyone. I mean, White hasn't really done much, and Black's moving forwards. Black's created some of those holes on the king side. So it is surprising that the bar thinks White is 1.4 pawns better. The bar's had a long day today. You know, time to go to the bar. Bar. I wonder what's on my mind.
Is there anything we're missing here tactically? Because I don't see it. I mean, it just looks so nice. Well, not nice necessarily, but it just looks fine for Black. It looks very healthy. Maybe this is the idea. Black's dark square bishop doesn't have too many safe squares to run to. Pragg wants to eliminate that piece, force off an exchange. The bishops could potentially leave the board now. Maybe you can trade off the bishops and then slide the white rook across 1 square to the left. Oof, some tactics. This is sharpening up, becoming a bit more concrete. And there we go, the bishop trade has happened. Pragg under the 1 minute mark. Maybe you attack this black queen. If you don't attack her, okay, trading off a set of pawns first.
But that releases the rook. I mean, Black would just jump down that pawn trade and capture with the A pawn.
I think Pragg just really wants the draw. He's not even trying to look for anything ambitious. He wants to trade off the rooks. White's rook is going to go to the top of the board next move. Those rooks are going to disappear, and he's just going to come back and try to lock things down and defend.
I think Magnus is like about 90% to win this game. I've seen it so many times before. It's probably dead equal now, but Magnus will just keep probing. His opponent tries to draw, like you said, and he'll end up winning. And swapping the rooks kind of makes some sense, but the white king is much weaker than the black king because of those dart squares. So I think now white must be worse now, even though the bar doesn't agree. Why is the bar not agreeing with anything? It just seems like it's going a little bit more that way now, but still okay.
With best play, this should be a draw. We should mention it's level pawns, level pieces, relatively symmetrical, but it's just about who can maneuver better. It's about whose knight can get active quickest.
Well, Pragg, I mean, in defense of Pragg, he does need a draw, and the knight will relocate itself maybe via the C1 square to D3, attack some pawns, and okay, Black's knight gets active. It's going to plant itself on the wonderful F4 square. That's a good strategy. But if I were Pragg, I probably would put my knight on C1.
Yeah, just bring the knight back towards the centre, either that way or move it forwards and back around. I think makes a lot of sense, right? If you can get the knights off the board, then yeah, please, they can shake hands. Then there's really can't be much more in the position. So, can he do that now? Okay, first of all, he's just shoring up his structure. If the black queen ever gets in, then black is probably going to be winning, right? But at the moment, it has no way in. But I don't know what white's next move is.
Maybe he can kick away the knight. I know it's kind of really loose. But maybe he can just kick that knight away and then tuck the king to the G2 square and just say, OK, I'm solid as a rock.
Yeah.
We'll most likely see this side of the board blocked up as well. Both sides will be blocked. The black queen would love to get active, but as you guys mentioned, but white's knight is doing a good job of just eyeing up the pawn behind the black queen, keeping that black queen fixed on its square. Maybe now is the time to just try and secure the white king even further. Still some weak squares around it. Yeah,
still equal, isn't it? Still equal. I mean, the time, they're both now getting much shorter, so it's got to kick into gear soon.
How are your nerves, Praggnanandhaa?
They're normally pretty good, aren't they?
They're normally pretty good, but it's not every day that you beat the world champion in a match.
No.
Yeah.
He's on the brink now. He just needs to improve the white queen, get out of this pin on the file.
And he has done.
Square.
And, Magnus trying to make some advancing on the queen side there, gaining a little bit of space. But so far, so good.
It's just the clock. Praggnanandhaa went down to around 5 seconds there.
Wow.
Moving his knight back. Still enough material left, and there we go.
Can't you move the B pawn now, Barry, because then you get a square? No, he's moved his knight in instead. Bit surprising there. And I mean, why? If the queen's come off, then it's back to being dead equal again.
Feels like Magnus just trying to provoke weaknesses around the white king, but losing too much time in the process.
I think he could have made a square in the middle of the board, couldn't he, by moving his B pawn, and now...
Big threat on the board, and that's why white slides the king.
Yeah, again, moving this B pawn seems so natural to me.
Just to do it now.
Just to try and get a square for the knight.
He'll go for it. He has to. No, he's going for improving the queen. Maybe this is a good strategy, maximise the position of the queen and then do the pawn break. And look what Pragg has done. He's voluntarily given black that square.
OK, that seems like a horrible positional move, but... look at the black knight coming into the middle at some point, but he's trying to use tactics to get out of this. It just feels like this is going wrong. And well, he was 95% to win this one, as we guessed, all the way through it.
You did say 10 moves ago when it was equal, and it's all because black's position is just, I don't know, it's just more harmonious. Black's queen is going to start taking some pawns. Yeah. That black B pawn is about to start pushing and promote. The black king is much safer than the white king. And all Magnus needs to do, he's actually threatening checkmate if the black queen has swung across all the way into the corner. White prevents that. Maybe even trading off the queens now would be winning, but Magnus first starts pushing.
Looks like we're going to get Armageddon.
I think so.
Looks like it.
Round this one out of nothing. It was dead drawn. Yep. It's all about that grinding like a grandmaster. Just so proud. But yeah, I mean, for Pragg though, it's that negativity, it's that wrong mindset of playing for a draw. Yeah. Even if he played great moves, even if it was a draw.
Yeah.
Eventually, you will make one small mistake, and Magnus loves that type of thing. White's knight now has given itself up. It cost that knight to get rid of Black's dangerous pawn, and Magnus threatening checkmate again in the corner. Black knight just needs to find a safe square, and this one will be game over. Okay, a few more checks from Magnus. He just blundered his knight.
No way!
He just thought he was threatening checkmate in the corner of the board, but the white queen now defends against any checks.
And look at his face. He's still laughing there. He's had enough now. Has he had enough?
Is he resigning?
He's resigned.
Okay.
There comes a handshake.
Oh, a polite handshake. Praggnanandhaa wins the match.